Is the Australian property market doomed? We send our kids from prep to year 12 to learn how to become employees, to then go to university to rack up 20, 30, 40, $50,000 worth of debt, to then go get a job that probably starts out close to minimum wage, to work another 5, 6, 7 years to start earning good income, and then be able to build a family. Now, if you look at that timeline, it's going to take people until their mid 30s to start to break into the property market, to create enough savings, even if they've got a partner and someone that they can pool their resources with, and then actually buy a property in your major capital cities like Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne. And so is the market broken? Have we got this indoctrination, or have we got this step-by-step laid out for the next generation that's going to fail them? And what can you do if you're a teenager in your 20s or 30s to get yourself ahead if you're serious about looking to break into the property market? Now, a lot of people see me and where I'm at in terms of a YouTube channel and a property investment portfolio and a lifestyle, and think that it's come easy and think that, I was gifted it, or it's been passed down through family. But the reality is I started investing in 2018 and bought my first property at 23. And I've heard of a lot of young investors buying properties at 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Even if you're not that person and it takes you till 27 or 35 to buy your first property, there's ways and strategies that you can actually make the most of this broken system. So the first big point to touch on is savings rates. Now, this is very basic, but if you're earning $100,000 and you're spending $100,000, that's going to mean that you have no savings, and that shows the banks that you can't accumulate any capital, and it also will stop you from creating a deposit to then go out and buy an asset. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're earning 50K, 75K, 100K, 300 grand. If you're spending the amount that you're earning, you're not going to be able to build assets and start to create wealth. So you need to look at your savings rates. And this is where people say, oh, I don't want to cut out my coffee. And I get that, but it adds up to about 2 to 3 grand a year. So say you do keep the coffees in because you love your caffeine. I get that. But then maybe you don't want to have a luxury European holiday. Maybe you want to go backpacking instead. Or maybe instead of having a brand new car like a RAV4 for $45,000, $50,000, you buy a $10,000 2012 Yaris. Emily and I had a Holden Barina ourselves, and we had that car right up until a few years ago, which is wild to think about. We only really sold and got new cars in around 2023. And so there was a big delayed gratification piece, and that was across the board. Now, coming back to the coffees, because it's one that's talked about in the media a lot, if you can save $1,000 a year, so say you have every second coffee out, that adds up with the savings of you going backpacking, with the savings of you having a slightly older car that still is functional and reliable. All those pieces add up together, which allow you to hit your savings goal. And so that's the first big thing, is you do need to get a deposit together. And that probably needs to be around $35,000 to $50,000 if you're looking to break into the property market. The second big thing about this broken market is that you need to use the tax advantages and the schemes and grants that are available to you. So if you are a first home buyer, then make sure you're getting onto the 5% government deposit schemes. Make sure you're getting the stamp duty concession by buying a property for less than $700,000. And look into the First Home Super Saver scheme and any other grants and concessions that you can get. And if you have a wonderful mum and dad who are willing to go guarantor for you, then leverage that. If you've got family willing to help, definitely leverage off the assets and resources that you have and use that to your advantage to break into the market. Now, what do you buy, and what is the target? Because it's, we're looking at apartments in Brisbane City now being $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 for 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. And I see a lot of young people and young couples look at those assets and go, okay, well, that's all I can afford. That's what I'll buy. But I think you need to think outside the box a little bit. Can you have, again, delayed gratification? Could you go buy a house out in the suburbs, which is still built up and still somewhat established? And in Brisbane, that could be your Ipswich or your Logan or your Moreton Bay regions. Can you buy a house on a reasonable sized block in these locations, live in this area for 6 to 12 to 18 months, and then go back to renting where you want to live and back into your community and back into your friendship groups? So there might be periods where you have to sacrifice. Emily and I moved from the south side to the north side to buy our first property, which was in Kelvin Grove. And so there was a sacrifice there. And so you need to look at what you're willing to sacrifice to work towards an end goal. Now, in saying all this, it's really difficult. If we look at previous generations, the baby boomers, for example, they've had it a lot easier with their wages relative to asset prices. But the reality is, I don't think we can change where we're at right now at an individual level. Yes, we can lobby politicians and ask the government to put in more grants and schemes and all those things. But all these schemes and grants tend to fuel the market rather than slow down prices. And so I think you need to work towards to breaking into the property market rather than giving up and letting it run away from you. The hardest thing about investing, in my opinion, is building momentum. It took Emily and I 2.5 to 3 years to save a deposit to buy our first house. And then it took another 2 years, close to 2.5 years, to buy our second property. So if you look at that original timeline, that's almost 4 to 5 years to get the first property and then to purchase the second. Now, in the last 12 months, I've been blessed to be able to purchase 4 investments. And that is mind-blowing to me. That is absolutely mind-blowing that I've been able to purchase an asset in Logan, an asset in Moreton Bay, and 2 houses in Ipswich this year. Now, the reason I'm able to do that is the momentum or the snowball effect. Once you're able to get a bigger and bigger asset base, you can then leverage the assets you've got, continue to grow your income, and build a property portfolio. And so it might seem like this is an impossible goal. It's an impossible dream to buy your first house or to break into the market or to pay down your HECS debt or to save a little more and sacrifice. But if it's worth it to you, that's the big thing. If this is worth it to you and you see this broken system, but you want to fight against it and you want to create some more wealth for yourself and your future family, then this might well be the journey that you have to take. And many investors like myself have taken over the last decade. And so I would encourage you, don't bury your head in your hands thinking that it's all too hard and this market is impossible and there's no chance that I will ever buy a property. But I want to encourage you and say that it is possible. It's not going to be easy. It certainly wasn't easy for Emily and I to build the portfolio that we've built together. But it's given myself at this point so many more choices than I could have ever dreamed of in my early 20s. And so it was absolutely worth it in a way for Emily and I to build the portfolio together and work towards a future where we would have more choices. And so if you want that and you're looking for help and you're a first home buyer or you're an investor or you're an owner occupier here in Southeast Queensland, then head over to purposeproperty.com.au to book in a free chat with myself. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below about Australia's broken property market and your thoughts, and give this video a click right here because apparently that's the one to watch. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.